today we're talking about Arrival, of course. This is the film that we are watching in March 2022. And we thought that Villeneuve, the director, Denis Villeneuve, deserved his whole own episode.
Villeneuve, the topic.
So I thought we
is
should...
what the topic is.
Yes.
Villeneuve, the topic.
Not just as a director, as a topic of this episode. I wanted to ask you what your favorite Denis Villeneuve film is, if you have, depending on how many you've seen. I think I've seen like 4 or 5. Does that sound right? I think he has a couple that I haven't seen, but I've seen like most of them.
I think I've seen 5.
I feel like you're probably the same
Yeah.
one.
Like I've seen Sicario, Arrival, Dune, Blade Runner.
Sicario.
And then Prisoners? The Hugh Jackman one? Yeah. So 5. Must have seen 5.
I've seen the same ones. Or did you see Blade Runner?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah, you did. I haven't seen Incendies. Is that his first big one?
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
I haven't seen it, but yeah, so we've seen the same ones. Great. Do you have a least favorite and do you have a favorite?
Oh, it's so hard. Wait, do you? Like, have you thought it through before recording or?
Not before now.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about it now.
They're all so different. Can we group them? Let's group them first.
Okay.
I think that, like, Prisoners, Sicario can be a group.
Yeah, I see that.
I don't know if Blade Runner is groupable. You know?
Yeah. I think it's a lot of people's favorite. Like, I know a lot of people love Blade Runner, but I think you and I are kind of on the same page that it just, like, wasn't for us. It was well done. It was really cool to watch.
Beautiful.
Very large scale. Yeah. But
it was okay. It was okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
in terms of my preferences. Like, it was a great movie as a movie, but in terms of my preferences, it was okay.
So it was okay. And then I would group Arrival and Dune.
Yeah.
Although, I guess, like, in terms of, like, if we thought of a franchise, Dune and Blade Runner probably can be grouped that way as well.
They're closer. Yeah. Because Blade Runner, it centers on this man who's trying to figure out something about himself and the world around him. Does that seem fair?
Yes.
And it's action. It's also sci-fi. And I think all of that explanation can apply to Dune. To me, Arrival felt very different. It's much more a human story. There's not really any action. There's some romance. There's not really romance in Dune. Well,
yeah, there is.
There's hints of it. It's more like flashbacks or dreams, though. It's not like an actual romance. And same with Blade Runner. And then Arrival is more like, you know, about the drama. It's about human relationships, even though it does have the sci-fi element to it.
I guess what we're comparing, it feels like, do we want action / crime thriller Denis Villeneuve, or do we want sci-fi Denis Villeneuve? Because
crime thriller, that's a good qualification, because Sicario and Prisoners, crime thriller, that fits for both of those as well.
So, like, do we prefer Villeneuve the topic and director, topic/director, for the crime thriller genre, or do we want to talk about Villeneuve in the sci-fi? Because, like, which one is he stronger in? I think he's just, like, if I remember my experience of watching Sicario in the cinema, I remember coming out of it having that moment of, like, wow, it was a great movie. Like, I remember that. I wouldn't say it was as strong as the wow feeling from Arrival. And then I didn't see... I saw Blade Runner in theaters too, but, like, not at the time when it was released. I didn't have that feeling with Blade Runner. I didn't see Prisoners in theater, so I guess I can't really talk about that. It's a good film. And then Dune, I had that wow You know, it's like that wow, and then like you nod 4 times, and then you just like don't say anything. It's like that kind of feeling of like, yeah, wow. Yeah.
I think for me, a lot of movies that have that wow factor are the sci-fi because of the, like, I can't just be wowed by, like, just a relationships or something, or like a romance or a comedy. I'm not really going to be wowed, but if it's like a fascinating story that makes me think in a very particular way, that makes me like look up analysis or like ending explanations after, then I often have that wow. And yeah, like Prisoners didn't, it was a much more kind of like grounded film. It didn't have any kind of sci-fi elements, and honestly I found it pretty disturbing, and parts of it hard to watch. So it was a great film, but I wasn't like, oh yeah, I'd go watch that over again. Like I don't know if I'll watch it again.
I think it was a wow in a different way for like Prisoners. I agree. Like I also feel like I couldn't wow because it wasn't like this big immersive experience.
All encompassing.
Yeah, so I guess from this, at this point of the conversation, we can kind of put Prisoners and Blade Runner into like the lower tier Villeneuve, just because like we're kind of okay with Blade Runner. Prisoners, I feel like it's more than okay, but it's like not the same level as the ones that we're about to talk about. I think Sicario probably is a middle one, like a middle tier. I don't really know. But I think the wow. Oh, you think differently?
I didn't love Sicario. I don't think I would watch it again. So that's kind of interesting that those bottom 3 for me are, while I think that they're all great films, very well directed, and obviously well lauded, well loved, like they weren't personally for me. Whereas the first 2, obviously the ones remaining are Arrival and Dune. I love both of those.
I think I have that wow moment for Dune and wow moment for Arrival in a different way, though. Like the wow is a different meaning of wow. We're saying wow too much. I am saying wow too much. But I think with Dune, the wow was like, oh my gosh, like this world is nuts. This movie is nuts. The fact that there's so many details, like the textures, the music, it was so immersive. It was so cool. It was amazing. Like all that hard work, all of that dedication, that attention to detail, to like all of those little bits and pieces, it was so impressive. And I think that was wow. Whereas I think Arrival, the wow was more like this feeling of like a mix of emotions of like both heartbreak, both sadness, loss and grief, but like optimism and excitement and like triumph, and all of those things felt wow. And I think I prefer the wow of Arrival than the wow of like, this is a great world. Not saying that's not a wow, but it's like a different wow.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't know. I kind of feel like I have to see them both one more time in order to know, because Arrival, again, I haven't seen in theaters, and Dune I've seen more recently, so in some ways, well, not more recently, but like I saw it in theaters, twice in theaters, so I don't know. It's hard to answer that question, but I kind of feel like in a couple years, when I've seen both quite a few times, and hopefully I've seen Arrival in theaters, I think Arrival will probably come out on top for me.
Yeah. I believe in that too. Believe in that path for you. I can see the past, present, and future all at once, and like that's the path for you. Ooh. I'd be curious to see Dune the second, though, like the second in the series, I guess, because it's probably going to be more than 2. I don't know, because I also don't know the story. So perhaps because the first one was a lot about building things up, perhaps I'll feel differently about Dune. And I think in general, it might be worthwhile checking in like when that releases about Dune as like a concept as like, not concept, but like as a duo or like as a trio or whenever we check in about that, because I think Dune is like a bit incomplete, which I mean we definitely talked about before, is that like it's half the story, right? It's not everything. So I kind of feel like it's hard to assess Dune as well, because it's not as it was intended in terms of storytelling.
Yeah, it's almost like we can't evaluate part 1 until we've also seen part 2 and how that resolves.
But then in the cinematic world, like, you kind of have to assess every movie as a movie. You can't just like assess it as like 2 movies, because then no one's sitting through like a 6-hour film. I mean,
yeah, it's like how Game of Thrones, like, people hated the last season, and so they remember that as part of the series. They're like, oh yeah, Game of Thrones and how it ended terribly. They can't just be like, oh, I love Game of Thrones, like, but only be thinking of the first 7 seasons. Like, that last one also factors in there.
Yeah, but I think you can create your own ending of a series, though. Like, you can kind of like just say like, that's complete for me. Like New Girl, the last season didn't really need to exist, and like for a lot of sitcoms especially, because they're kind of slice of life, like you can end them whenever. Even House, like, you can kind of just see it as like a sneak peek of the world of House. Well, I'm glad that our ratings are kind of the same.
Yeah, they line up. That's interesting. I don't know if it would be the same with the Nolan films, but maybe someday we'll find out.